The Eternal Accord was the largest space station ever built. It floated in neutral space, far from any star, and served as the meeting place for over 4,000 species. Today, its great hall was full. Representatives from across the galaxy had gathered to witness something historic. Ambassador walked to the center platform. He was tall, even for a. His body was made of living crystal, 8 arms folded behind his back, and his face showed no emotion. They had ruled their part of the galaxy for 50,000 years. They had crushed hundreds of species. They had never lost a war. Today, they would deliver a message to the members of the Galactic Concord, the humans. Looked at the human section. There were only 12 of them, small, soft creatures with no claws, no armor, no venom. They had discovered faster-than-light travel only 200 years ago. In galactic terms, they were bobbies. Humanity began, his voice filling the hall through translators. You have been given 3 chances to accept reasonable terms. You have refused all 3. The hall was silent. Everyone knew what was coming. You refused to surrender your border colonies. You refused economic partnership with the Dominion. You refused to hand over your soldiers for study. His crystal body flickered with cold light. This is unacceptable. He raised one arm and a hologram appeared. It showed the First Fleet, 12,000 warships. Each one was larger than anything humans had ever built. The fleet stretched across space like a wall of death. You have 1 galactic rotation to surrender completely, said. Your leaders will step down. Your military will be dissolved. Your colonies will become territory. If you refuse, we will reduce you to glass. Every human everywhere will die. This is not a threat. This is a fact. He paused, letting the words sink in. Do you have a response? The human ambassador stood up slowly. Her name was. She was 60 years old with gray hair cut short and a face marked by old scars. She had been a starship captain before becoming a diplomat. She had fought pirates, rescued colonists from dying worlds, and once held a damaged ship together for 3 days with nothing but emergency repairs and willpower. She walked to the center platform and looked up at. She was small next to him, a child facing a giant. The hall waited. Ambassador said. Her voice was calm and steady. On behalf of the United Earth government and all human colonies, I have a response to your ultimatum. She paused. We accept your declaration of war. For a moment, nothing happened. Then laughter began. It started small and grew until it filled the entire hall. 4,000 species laughed at the tiny human woman who had just accepted death for her entire race. They had the largest fleet in the galaxy. They had weapons that could crack planets. They had been fighting wars since before humans had discovered fire, and this soft little creature thought she could fight them. But not everyone laughed. In the far corner of the hall, the archivists sat in silence. They were among the oldest species in the galaxy. They did not fight wars. They only watched and recorded. One archivist leaned toward another. Someone should have warned it whispered. About what? The other asked. About the persistence hunters. Near them, the Watchers were already leaving. They were another ancient race. They had seen civilizations rise and fall for millions of years. They knew when to run. A young Watcher asked their elder, "Why are we leaving? The war hasn't started yet." The elder's many eyes blinked slowly. "Do you know how humans became the dominant species on their planet?" "No." They hunted by following, not by speed or strength. They would pick a target and follow it. When it ran, they walked. When it hid, they tracked. They would follow for hours, days, weeks if needed. They never stopped. They never gave up. They just kept coming until their prey collapsed from exhaustion. The elder moved toward the exit. Now imagine that, but with starships. Back at the center platform, stared at. The laughter had died down. He searched her face for fear, for doubt, for any sign that she understood what she had done. He found nothing but cold determination. You are fools, he said. Your species will be remembered as a minor footnote, a mistake that was corrected. Smiled, it was not a happy smile. Ambassador, do you know what humans call a situation where we're outnumbered and have no chance of victory? Did not respond. We call it Tuesday. She turned to face the entire assembly. To all species present, I have a message from humanity. We did not ask for this war. We do not want this war, but we will fight it, and we will fight it in ways you cannot imagine. She looked back at. Your species has ruled through fear for 50,000 years. You think you know what fear is. You think you know what war is. Her voice dropped low. You don't, but you will. Every single one of you will learn what happens when you corner a human, what happens when you threaten our families, our children, our home. She began walking back to the human section. We are not going to surrender. We are not going to run. We are going to fight you with everything we have and everything we will build. And when this war is over, the galaxy will remember one thing. She stopped at the door and looked back one final time. They will remember that the Dominion made the worst mistake in their 50,000-year history. They picked a fight with humans. Then she was gone. The hall remained silent for a long moment, stood alone on the platform, his crystal body flickering. Finally, an archivist spoke. Its voice was old and tired. Congratulations, Ambassador. You have just declared war on the most lethal species in the galaxy. The ancient being rose from its seat. May your gods have mercy on you, because the humans will not. One by one, the elder races began to leave. They had seen enough. They knew what was coming. The younger species remained, still laughing, still confident that this would be a short war. They had no idea. In the void between stars, the first human ships were already moving. Deep in shipyards across 40 worlds, workers began around-the-clock shifts. And in the quiet rooms of Earth's military headquarters, generals who had once been enemies sat together and began planning. The hunt had begun. High Commander stood in the war room of his flagship, the Eternal Blade. Around him, dozens of officers worked at crystal consoles, preparing for the easiest campaign of their careers. The holographic display showed human space, 40 small colonies. Nothing that would take more than a few months to destroy. Show me everything we know about humans, ordered. An officer brought up the file, studied it with growing amusement. Humans were soft. Their skin could be cut with a simple blade. They had no natural armor, no venom, no claws worth mentioning. They were slow compared to most species. They could not see in the dark. They could not hear high frequencies. They needed to sleep for 8 hours every day or their minds would fail. Pathetic, said. How did these creatures ever leave their planet? Unknown, High Commander, the officer replied. Their technology is crude but functional. Their ships are small and poorly armed. Their population is only 18 billion across all worlds. Laughed, the Dominion had 2 trillion citizens. This war would be like stepping on insects. There are some anomalies in the data, the officer continued carefully. What anomalies? Cultural behaviors that our analysts cannot explain. The officer pulled up a new display. Humans engage in something called sport. They fight each other for entertainment, not to the death but close to it. They call it boxing, wrestling, mixed martial arts. Barbaric continue. They also run for no reason, not hunting, not fleeing. They simply run, long distances. Some humans run over 40 kilometers at a time. Our medical experts say this should cause organ failure, but humans do it regularly. They call it fun. His crystal face showed confusion. That makes no sense. There is more. The officer seemed uncomfortable now. Humans keep predators as companions, animals with teeth and claws that could kill them. They sleep in the same dwellings. They let these predators near their children. They are insane. Perhaps, High Commander, but the strangest thing is their food. The officer brought up an image. This is called a chili pepper. It produces a chemical called capsaicin. This chemical causes pain, intense burning pain. It is technically classified as a weapon by 47 species. And humans eat it. They put it on their food because they enjoy the pain. They have competitions to see who can consume the most. Stared at the display for a long moment. Then he dismissed it with a wave of his arm. Irrelevant. These are the behaviors of a primitive species. They will die just as easily as any other. He turned to his fleet commanders. Prepare for departure. We destroy their outer colonies first, then move toward Earth. Total annihilation. No survivors. The officers saluted and began their work. Looked at the star map one more time. 40 systems, 18 billion lives, a few months of work at most. He had no idea what was waiting for him. Far across the galaxy, on a blue planet called Earth, a very different meeting was taking place. The Global Defense Council met in a bunker deep beneath Geneva. The room was full of the most powerful military leaders in human history. Generals, admirals, commanders from every nation. Many of them had fought each other in past wars. Some had lost family to the people sitting next to them. None of that mattered now. Admiral Sarah stood at the main display. She was small, with black hair streaked with gray and eyes that had seen too many battles. She pressed a button and the fleet appeared. 12,000 warships, she said, each one bigger than anything we have. Their weapons can destroy cities from orbit. Their shields can take hits that would vaporize our largest cruisers. She paused. If we fight them ship to ship, we lose. It's that simple. The room was silent. General leaned forward. He was from Ghana, a massive man with a voice like thunder. Then we don't fight them ship to ship. Explain, said Admiral. Throughout history, smaller forces have defeated larger ones, not by playing the enemy's game, by changing the rules. Stood and walked to the display. They expect us to meet them in honorable combat, fleet against fleet. They have done this for 50,000 years. They always win. He zoomed in on a supply line. But their empire is large. Their supply lines are long, and they have never fought a species willing to do what we are willing to do. Which is, someone asked. Smiled, it was not a pleasant smile. Everything, anything, whatever it takes. He turned to face the room. We are not going to fight a war. We are going to fight a hunt. We will be the wolves. They will be the deer. We will nip at their heels, cut their supply lines, destroy their fuel depots. We will hit them where they don't expect. We will never stop. We will never rest. We will make them bleed for every inch of space. Admiral nodded slowly. Operation Persistence. Yes, pulled up a new display. We cannot build ships fast enough to match their fleet, but we can build fast ships, small ships, ships with crews willing to fly suicide missions if needed. He looked around the room, and we have something they have never faced. What? 18 billion people who would rather die than kneel. People who will work 20-hour shifts in shipyards. People who will fly into battle knowing they won't come back. People who will fight with their bare hands if they have to. General Maria Santos, commander of Earth's ground forces, spoke up. My soldiers are ready. Every single one volunteered for planetary defense. We have militias forming on every colony. Farmers, teachers, children, everyone wants to fight. The colonies that will be hit first, Admiral said. Can we evacuate them? We can, Santos replied. But we won't leave them empty. We'll leave surprises. What kind of surprises? Santos smiled. The kind that explode. The meeting continued for hours. Plans were made. Resources were allocated. Officers who had been enemies days ago now worked as brothers and sisters. When it was over, Admiral stood alone in the empty room. She looked at the display showing the approaching fleet. Her grandfather had fought in the Third Pacific War. Her mother had survived the Mars Colony Rebellion. Her family had been fighting and surviving for generations. They had never given up. They had never surrendered. She touched the display, her fingers brushing across the enemy ships. "You have no idea what you've started," she whispered. "You think this will be easy. You think we'll break." She turned off the display. "You're wrong." Across human space, the preparation began. Factories ran day and night. Shipyards glowed with welding fire. Soldiers trained for combat they knew they might not survive. And in the void between stars, the first human scout ship slipped past the fleet. They were watching, learning, waiting. The wolves were getting ready to hunt. The first fleet arrived at New Helsinki on a cold Tuesday morning. Commander L stood on the bridge of his carrier, looking at the small blue world below. It was a farming colony, 3 million humans, easy targets. "Scan for defenses," he ordered. "Scanning now, Commander," the officer paused. "Strange, I'm detecting no military ships, no orbital weapons, no shields." El made a sound of disgust. "They have abandoned it, cowards. There are still structures in orbit, old cargo stations. Destroy them, then glass the planet, leave nothing alive." The fleet moved into position. 300 warships aimed their weapons at the helpless world. El felt a moment of satisfaction. This was how war was supposed to be. Quick, clean, the strong crushing the weak. "Commander," an officer called out, "I'm getting strange readings from the orbital stations." "What kind of readings?" "Energy signatures. They're growing very fast." El's crystal body flickered. "What?" The officer's voice rose in panic. "Commander, those aren't cargo stations. They're rigged with fusion cores, hundreds of them. They're going to." The explosion was visible from 3 systems away. The orbital stations had been packed with enough fusion bombs to crack a moon. When they detonated, they created a wall of fire that consumed everything nearby. 200 ships vanished in seconds. Another 100 were crippled, their shields overwhelmed, their hulls torn apart. El's carrier survived only because it was at the edge of the formation. Alarms screamed. Officers shouted in confusion. The bridge was chaos. "Report," El screamed. "What happened?" "They booby-trapped the planet," an officer gasped. "They left it as a trap." Before El could respond, new alarms sounded. Contacts, multiple contacts emerging from faster than light, small ships, hundreds of them. They came out of nowhere. Human squadrons, tiny ships, barely bigger than fighters but fast, so fast. They swooped through the damaged fleet like predators sensing blood. The human ships did not aim for the big carriers. They aimed for the supply ships, the fuel tankers, the ammunition transports. They fired their weapons and vanished back into FTL before they could respond. In 12 minutes, they destroyed 30 supply ships and disappeared. El stood in the burning wreckage of his bridge, surrounded by dead officers and broken machines. 300 ships lost, a third of his fleet, and they had not killed a single human. "Send a message to High Command," he said quietly. Tell them the humans fight dirty." News of the disaster at New Helsinki spread quickly through the Dominion. High Commander was furious. He ordered 10 more fleets to join the invasion. He would crush these insects with overwhelming force. But the humans did not wait for him. Operation Boomerang began 3 days after New Helsinki. Using navigation data stolen from captured ships, human stealth vessels slipped past the front lines. They did not attack military targets. They attacked infrastructure. Mining stations, communication relays, agricultural worlds, the invisible backbone that kept the Dominion running. A mining station in the system exploded without warning. A communication hub in the sector went dark. Crops burned on a farming world that had never seen war. They were confused. These were not military targets. These were civilian facilities. What kind of species attacked civilians? They did not understand. Humans were not fighting a war. They were fighting for survival. And when humans fight for survival, there are no rules. 6 months into the war, Captain led us into space. His ship, the Angry Wasp, was held together by emergency repairs and stubborn hope. His crew had not slept properly in weeks. They ran on stimulants, coffee, and pure hatred. "Target ahead," his navigator reported. "Troop transport, carrying soldiers to the front line." "How many soldiers?" 50,000. Smiled, "Let's say hello." The Angry Wasp was a converted cargo ship. It had no armor. Its weapons were second-hand military surplus. By all logic, it should not be able to hurt a troop transport. But the transport was alone. Its escort had been pulled away to protect supply lines, and had spent 6 months learning every weakness in ship design. His crew fired everything they had at the transport's engine section. The shields there were weakest. It took 40 minutes of constant fire, dodging return shots, dancing around the larger ship like a fly around a bull. Finally, something broke. The transport's engines exploded. The ship began to drift. His crew cheered. 50,000 enemy soldiers would never reach the front line. "Sir," the navigator said, "we're picking up a distress call from the transport. They want to surrender." Thought about his brother, killed when they glassed the colony of New Brisbane. He thought about the 18 million people who had died there. Men, women, children. "Tell them we accept their surrender," he said. "Tell them to abandon ship in escape pods. We'll leave coordinates for a neutral species to pick them up." "Sir, we're not monsters," said quietly. "We're just humans. We fight hard, but we're not going to murder helpless soldiers." The troop transport was destroyed, but 50,000 soldiers survived to tell the tale of the human captain who showed mercy. It confused them more than any act of war. On a captured outpost, a young warrior named Heel was taken prisoner. Human Marines had overwhelmed the base in a night attack. Most of the garrison was dead. Heel had survived only because a human soldier had stopped another from killing him. "Why?" Heel asked. "Why not kill me? We would kill all of you." The human who had saved him was a woman, young, dirty, exhausted. Her arm was wrapped in bloody bandages. She looked at him with eyes that held no hatred, only tiredness. "Because we're better than that," she said. "Because if we become like you, then even winning the war means losing." Heel did not understand. They had conquered species for 50,000 years. They had never shown mercy. They had never needed to. "You confuse me," he admitted. The human woman laughed. It was a strange sound, warm. "Good, maybe that means there's hope." She walked away, leaving Heel to wonder what kind of species he was fighting. They were fierce enough to blow up fleets. They were cruel enough to attack civilian infrastructure. But they were also merciful enough to spare surrendering soldiers. They were contradictions, impossibilities. They were human. Back at High Command, reports piled up on his desk. Supply lines disrupted. Communication networks damaged. Morale falling. Soldiers were beginning to whisper about the humans. They called them ghosts, demons, creatures that could not be killed. "This is temporary," told himself. "We have superior numbers, superior technology. We will win." But deep down, a small voice whispered a question he could not answer. "What if we can't?" 2 years into the war, the galaxy watched in disbelief. The Dominion had glassed 6 human worlds, 18 million people dead on New Brisbane, 5 million on Hope, 12 million on Far Haven. The numbers were horrifying. Any other species would have surrendered. Humanity did not surrender. Instead, they turned 12 systems into active war zones. Human ships appeared without warning, struck hard, and vanished. Human soldiers landed on worlds and melted into the population. They sabotaged factories. They assassinated commanders. They spread fear like a disease. Fleet Admiral N sat in his command center, staring at reports he could not believe. His fleet had been hunting a group of human raiders for 3 weeks. Every time they got close, the humans escaped. Every time they thought they had trapped them, the humans found a way out. How in demanded? How are they doing this? His intelligence officer looked uncomfortable. Sir, we have studied human biology more closely. We have found disturbing information. Tell me. Humans can function without sleep for several days. Their performance decreases, but they remain effective. They can march over 40 kilometers carrying heavy equipment. They can survive injuries that would kill any. The officer paused. And they heal. All species heal. Not like this. Humans can lose limbs and survive. They can break bones and continue fighting. They have a chemical their bodies produce called adrenaline. It allows them to ignore pain temporarily. It makes them faster and stronger when they believe they are in danger. N's crystal body flickered with confusion. They become more dangerous when threatened. Yes, sir. It is an evolutionary adaptation from their home world. Earth was a dangerous planet. Humans survived by refusing to die. On a controlled world called, soldiers huddled in their barracks at night. They were afraid, not of enemy fleets, not of orbital bombardment. They were afraid of the dark. Humans had landed on 3 months ago, only a few hundred of them. The garrison numbered 10,000. It should have been a simple extermination. But the humans did not fight fair. They hid in the forests. They attacked at night when vision was weakest. They set traps that exploded without warning. They killed sentries silently and disappeared before anyone knew they were there. Soldiers started having nightmares. They dreamed of soft-skinned creatures that came in the darkness, creatures that never stopped, creatures that kept coming no matter how many you killed. A new phrase entered language: human stubbornness. It meant a problem that would not go away, a wound that would not heal, a nightmare that never ended. Private wrote a letter to his family before he died on. They found it on his body later. They are not like other species, he wrote. Other species fight until they realize they cannot win, then they surrender. Humans do not work this way. They fight harder when they are losing. They become more dangerous when they are cornered. I have seen human soldiers charge our positions with empty weapons, using their rifles as clubs. I have seen them kill with their bare hands. They are not afraid to die. They are only afraid to lose. He died the next day. A human sniper shot him from a distance no believed possible. Back on the High Commander was breaking. He had not slept properly in months. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw reports, casualties, lost ships, failed campaigns. The war that was supposed to last months had stretched into years. The enemy that was supposed to collapse at the first attack was growing stronger. Then came Operation Icarus. A single human strike team used a stolen diplomatic ship to enter space. They did not attack the planet. They attacked the moon. The crystalline tombs, sacred ground, the resting place of 10,000 years of leaders. Every high commander, every fleet admiral, every hero of the Dominion was buried there. No enemy had ever touched it. No enemy had ever dared. The humans landed in the middle of the night. They did not destroy the tombs. That would have been too simple. Instead, they walked through the sacred halls. They left footprints in dust that had been untouched for centuries. They carved a message in the crystal walls. Nowhere is safe. Then they left. The psychological impact was devastating. The message spread across the Dominion in hours. The humans had walked in their most sacred place, had touched their honored dead, had proven that no defense could stop them. Collapsed when he heard the news. His mind simply broke under the pressure. He was removed from command and placed in a medical facility. He spent the rest of the war staring at walls and whispering about ghosts. His replacement was Fleet Admiral. She was younger, smarter, and more practical. She looked at the reports and saw the truth that had refused to accept. They were losing. Not quickly, not obviously, but slowly, surely they were bleeding to death. Their economy was damaged. Their military was exhausted. Their people were afraid. Began reaching out to neutral parties. Quietly, secretly. She needed to find a way to end this war before there was nothing left to save. Meanwhile, humanity revealed its weapon. The Spike-class dreadnought. It was ugly. It was inefficient. It broke every rule of galactic ship design. The engines were too big. The weapons were too heavy. The armor was too thick. According to every engineering principle, it should not work. But humans did not care about should. They cared about does. The first Spike-class ship, named the Indomitable, entered combat at the Battle of Prime. It faced 3 carriers alone, ships that had destroyed entire fleets. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, the Indomitable was burning, half its crew was dead, and 2 of its 3 engines were gone. But all 3 carriers were destroyed. The message was clear. Humanity could not be bullied, could not be frightened, could not be stopped. They would build ships from scraps and hatred. They would crew them with soldiers who did not fear death. They would keep coming and coming and coming until there was nothing left. Fleet Admiral watched the battle footage in her private quarters. She watched the human ship take hit after hit, losing sections, venting atmosphere, burning. She watched it keep firing anyway, keep fighting anyway. And she understood something that had never grasped. The humans were not winning because they were stronger. They were winning because they simply refused to lose. Every defeat made them angrier. Every dead world made them more determined. They had turned the war into something that had never faced before. A war of will. And in a war of will, they were outmatched. Turned off the footage and sat in darkness for a long time. Then she began writing a message to the galactic conquered, a request for mediation. It was time to end this war, before there was nothing left of the Dominion to save. 5 years after the war began, the Eternal Accord space station was full again. The same hall where had delivered his ultimatum now hosted a very different meeting. 4,000 species had gathered once more, but this time they were not laughing at humans. They were afraid of them. Fleet Admiral walked to the center platform. She moved slowly, her crystal body dull and cracked. The war had aged her. The Dominion had lost 40% of its fleet, 15% of its population. Hundreds of worlds were damaged or destroyed. The economy was in ruins. But worse than any physical damage was the loss of reputation. For 50,000 years, they had been the most feared species in the galaxy. Other civilizations surrendered at the sight of their fleets. Now they were the ones who had been fought to a standstill by a species that had only discovered fire a few 100,000 years ago. Spoke carefully. On behalf of the Dominion, I formally request mediation with the United Earth Government. We wish to discuss terms for ending the current conflict. She did not say surrender. She could not say surrender, but everyone in the hall knew what she meant. The human delegation entered from the opposite side of the hall. They were larger this time. 50 representatives, including military officers and diplomats. At their head was Ambassador. She had changed in 5 years. New scars marked her face. Her left eye was gone, replaced by a glowing cybernetic implant. She walked with a slight limp from an injury that had never fully healed, but her back was straight and her voice was strong. The United Earth Government accepts your request, said. We are prepared to discuss terms. The hall waited in silence, pulled out a data pad and began reading. Our terms are as follows. First, the Dominion will pay reparations to all human colonies affected by the war. The amount will be calculated based on population lost and infrastructure destroyed. Nodded slowly. This was expected. Second, the Dominion will withdraw from 12 contested systems along our shared border. These systems will become neutral space, administered by the Galactic Conquered. Again expected, painful but expected. Third, the Dominion will release all human prisoners of war within 30 days. In exchange, we will release all prisoners. Acceptable, said. Looked up from her data pad. Her cybernetic eye glowed faintly. Fourth, and this is not negotiable, she paused, the Dominion will issue a formal apology to every human colony that was attacked during this war. The apology will be delivered by a representative of the Dominion in person. It will acknowledge the unprovoked nature of the aggression and express regret for the lives lost. The hall erupted in murmurs. They had never apologized for anything. In 50,000 years of conquest, they had never admitted fault, never shown weakness. The very idea was unthinkable. His crystal body flickered with emotion. That is, beneath our dignity. His voice went cold. Dignity. She stepped closer to the platform. You want to talk about dignity? Let me tell you about dignity, Admiral. The hall fell silent. 18 million people died on New Brisbane. That was where my daughter lived. She was a teacher. She taught children how to read. When your fleet arrived, she helped evacuate her students. She got 300 children onto escape shuttles before the bombardment started. His voice did not shake. It was perfectly controlled. She died holding a 4-year-old girl who was crying for her mother. No one in the hall moved. That girl survived. Her name is Maya. She is 11 years old now. She lives on Earth. She has nightmares every night. She wakes up screaming for her teacher. Stepped onto the platform face to face with. You want to talk about dignity? Go to Earth. Look Maya in the eyes. Tell her you're sorry. Was silent. You came to exterminate us because we wouldn't kneel, continued. 5 years later, you're the ones asking for peace. I would say you're getting off easy. My parliament wanted the coordinates to your and 12 Planet Cracker missiles. I talked them down. But don't push me, Admiral. I am the only thing standing between you and total annihilation. A long moment passed, then bowed her head. We accept your terms, all of them. The treaty was signed that day. The war was officially over. The Dominion, undefeated for 50,000 years, had been humbled by a species they had dismissed as insects. As the assembly dispersed, an archivist approached Ambassador. It was ancient, even for its kind. Its body was covered in markings that recorded 10 million years of galactic history. Ambassador, it said, may I ask you something? Nodded. We have watched your species since you first touched the stars. We have studied your history, your wars, your art, your science. We have tried to understand you. The archivist's voice was soft. But we still have one question, one thing we cannot answer. Ask. What are you? Was silent for a moment. She thought about her grandmother who had survived a refugee camp as a child. Her grandfather, who had marched across frozen mountains in a war he did not start. Her daughter, who had died saving children she barely knew. We are humans, she said finally. We are the species that looked at a universe full of things that wanted to kill us and said, not today. And we meant it, every single day. Forever. The archivist nodded slowly. It had expected an answer like this. It had hoped for something it could understand, something that made sense. It did not get that. Thank you, Ambassador, it said. Then it turned and floated away. Later that day, the archivist added a new entry to the Galactic Codex, a simple warning flag attached to humanity's file. Species classification human, Earth status active. And below that, in letters that glowed red. Warning, do not engage, do not threaten, do not provoke. This species does not know when to stop. Exercise extreme caution in all interactions. The warning spread across the galaxy. Species that had never heard of Earth learned to fear it. Civilizations that had planned to expand into human space quietly changed their plans. They were proof of what happened to those who underestimated humanity. 50 years later, when the void swarm emerged from dark space, the galaxy faced extinction. The swarm had destroyed civilizations for 1,000,000 years. It could not be reasoned with. It could not be stopped. Every species that had faced it had been consumed. The Galactic Concord held an emergency session. Representatives argued for days. Some wanted to flee. Some wanted to surrender. Some wanted to pray to gods that had never answered. Finally, an old archivist stood up. Its voice was tired but certain. "There is only one option," it said. "We must call the humans." The hall fell silent. The humans are our only hope. They are the only species that has ever proven it cannot be defeated, cannot be broken, cannot be stopped. The message was sent to Earth. It was simple. "The galaxy needs you. Please help." Humanity's response came 3 days later. A fleet of ships emerged from faster-than-light at the edge of conquered space. Thousands of vessels, new designs, better weapons, the product of 50 years of preparation. And at the head of the fleet was a ship named Hope. Its captain broadcast a message to the assembled representatives. "We received your request. We're here to help." A pause. "The Void Swarm thinks it's the most dangerous thing in the universe. It's wrong. It just hasn't met humans yet." The captain's name was Maya. She was 61 years old. She had been a scared 4-year-old girl when they came. She had grown up with nightmares and rage and a promise that no one would ever hurt anyone she loved again. She had spent her entire life preparing for this moment. "All ships," she commanded, "forward." The human fleet moved into battle. The hunt had begun again.